these two books here, The Mountain Is You and Atomic Habits. So I'm going to start a little live series where we read some of the books that I have. Just to, you know, introduce you guys to some of the concepts in some of these books, but also because I need to review these books and the content in them, especially this one here, Atomic Habits, which is a book that will teach you how to basically develop routines and habits for your goals and things to reach your goals. And I've already read this book, but you know, it's really good to just review things, especially for me right now. I feel like I definitely could use a review of the content in this book. Hello. Because I have some goals and things that I need to start to really work on. So I'm gonna read just one chapter of The Mountain Is You, Atomic Habits, and then I'm also going to read a chapter from these other two books. This one I didn't particularly like when I did go through it the first time. This is Webtoon School. It's supposed to be kind of like everything you need to know about doing a webtoon, but when I read through it the first time, I didn't really like it too much. I didn't read like the whole book or anything, but I just kind of like skimmed through it a little bit, and it just didn't give the information that I thought it was gonna give. So I'm gonna give it another chance um, with reading it on live with you guys, and maybe it's helpful for somebody. And then I'm also gonna read a chapter from this book called The Story Solution by Eric Edson, which I think might even be a little bit better of a book to read when it comes to writing scripts for webcomics and things. Hi, thank you. Because this really goes over everything you need to know for writing screenplays and being a screenwriter and stuff, which is essentially what you're becoming when you're a webcomic creator. So, besides like the art part, obviously, but the writing part for sure. So this is the lineup today. We're gonna go into a little bit of the deeper stuff first, kind of get grounded, and then we're going to read through some of these storybooks here. Oh, good, good. Thanks for joining. It might be a couple hours. I don't know how long it's gonna take. I was on live a couple hours yesterday. If I can get it done in an hour, then I'll just limit it to that, but we'll see kind of how quickly I can read through these chapters. But yeah, so this is gonna be my new little live series I'm gonna do. I did two so far. One was just kind of for like shits and giggles, just to kind of try something out. And then I did it more seriously yesterday, and you guys seemed to really enjoy that. And we had some really good discussions too when we did go through the two books that we did. And that live is on my YouTube. We went through these two books here. So yeah, so I'm definitely going to make this more of a regular thing. And I'll put all, like I said, I'll keep all those videos on YouTube, and I'll start to label them better and add like descriptions and things so that way you can see what books and stuff we're going to be going through. So I'll kind of start to organize it a little bit better in that way. Thank you for subscribing. All right, I'm sorry there's like a loud noise outside my window here, but let's get into the books. Let's just dive right in. So these two books here, I really like them together because, like I was saying yesterday, The Mountain Is You is a really, really good book, as you'll see, because I'll read through it. This is a really good book to sort of open your mind up to the problems that you have, and it will really hold a mirror to yourself, and not only do that, but it's also going to help you to find a solution to those same issues too. So it's not just going to call you out, but it's also going to actively help you work through through the situations that you're going through. So once we get through those situations, we start to understand the problems that we're facing. Then we can read a chapter of this book called Atomic Habits, which will help to guide you in starting new routines and new daily habits, one day at a time, that can really help you to make some of those changes that that other book will talk about. All right, so I'm going to review a little bit of what we talked about yesterday. I'll read some of the highlights from the first chapter so you guys can see kind of what we got into yesterday. So, chapter 1, Out of the Mountain Is You, was really eye opening. I read through pretty much half of this book already, but it's been a while since I broke it open. So, what's so great about what I said yesterday too, what's so great about reading books and having books handy is that you can really tap into these whenever you want. And if you take notes and things, you do like these highlights and things like that, you know, it's obviously easy to find some notes and things that you put. And then also, when you go back to these books later, you might have a different perspective on even the same content that you read before, and it might really make more sense to you the second time around. So, The Mountain Is You. It says transforming self-sabotage into self-mastery. Okay, so in chapter 1, here are some of the highlights that I highlighted here, or here are some of the statements that I highlighted here. So here, your mountain requires you to reconcile two parts of you, the conscious and the unconscious, the part of you that is aware of what you want and the part of you that is not aware of why you are still holding yourself back. He says, your mountain is the block between you and the life you want to live. Facing it is also the only path to your freedom and becoming. You are here because a trigger showed you to your wound, and your wound will show you to your path, and your path will show you to your destiny. When you arrive at this breaking point, the foot of the mountain, the heat of the fire, the night that finally wakes you, you are at the crux of the breakdown. And if you are willing to do the work, you will find that it is the entryway to the breakthrough you have spent your entire life waiting for. Your old self can no longer sustain the life you are trying to lead. It's time for reinvention and rebirth. You must mourn the loss of your younger self, the person who has gotten you this far, but who is no longer equipped to carry you onward. You must envision and become one with your future self, the hero of your life that is going to lead you from here. All right. So in chapter 1, it says, self-sabotage is a coping mechanism. Self-sabotage is what happens when we refuse to consciously meet our innermost needs, often because we do not believe we are capable of handling them. Self-sabotage comes from irrational fear. Sometimes our most sabotaging behaviors are really the result of long-held and unexamined fears we have about the world and ourselves. Self-sabotage comes from unconscious negative associations. What's your question? On YouTube, let me know. When we self-sabotage, it's often because we have a negative association between achieving the goal we aspire to and being the kind of person who has or does that thing. In order to reconcile this, you have to begin to challenge these pre-existing ideas and then adopt new ones. Do I love to draw? I personally don't like to draw. my artists, I'm sure, love to draw, but I don't like to draw really. I'm not an artist, I'm a writer. Okay. Self-sabotage comes from what's unfamiliar. Self-sabotage is very often the simple product of unfamiliarity. And it's because anything is that is foreign, no matter how good, will also be uncomfortable until it's also familiar. The reason we don't allow those shifts to become baselines is because as soon as our circumstances extend beyond the amount of happiness we're accustomed to, we find ways, both conscious and unconscious, to bring ourselves back to a feeling we're comfortable with. What?
Do we have the go Juma?
Yes. Shut my door, please. What you believe about your life is what you will make true about your life. That's why it's so crucial to be aware of these outdated narratives and have the courage to change them. Your limiting beliefs might come from wanting to keep yourself safe. To truly heal, you're going to have to change the way you think. The first step in healing anything is taking full accountability. We reach a breaking point when we finally accept that the problem isn't how the world is, it's how we are. Most people don't most people don't actually change their lives until not changing becomes the less comfortable option. If you really want to change your life, let yourself be consumed with rage, not towards others, not with the world, but with yourself. Get angry, determined, and allow yourself to develop tunnel vision with one thing and one thing only at the end, that you will not go on as you are. All right, so that was a little recap of chapter 1. So we're going to get into chapter 2 today and see what she has to say about that. Let's see how long it is. Oh, it's kind of long, huh? Damn. That's damn near the whole book. All right, so let's get into it then. Hello, Queen. I'm reading The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest. All right. I need to first, before I get into that, I need to put my phone on charger. If you guys don't know, my name's Janelise, and I am the writer and creator of When the Silent Bird Sings. It's a webcomic on a platform called Lamoon, and you can find the comic in the link in my bio. It's a romance drama, a medical kind of romance drama. So I work with a team of artists to make the comic. I'm just the writer and the creator. And sometimes I come on live, sometimes I'm drawing. But I'm going to start this new live series where we're going to just read some books. Read these books that I need to read for myself personally. But figured since I'm going to be reading them, why not read them aloud and share them with you guys? Kind of killing two birds with one stone. But hopefully also it helps somebody else too, you know. I don't really know to your meeting because I'm just saw it on, and I know you weren't expecting that, but I'm almost bigger than I thought. Yeah. Okay. All right, so let's get into this. I'll kind of adjust on YouTube here. All right, and on TikTok, I'm gonna stop the live on TikTok. Actually, I don't know, I got like restricted. So let me stop it. I'm gonna stop it and redo it. TikTok is so annoying. I always get restrictions for like no reason. The live age limits? What? Oh my god. Alright. Okay, let's get into this. Oh, let's see. Alright, I got water, I got my highlighter. Chapter 2. There's no such thing as self-sabotage. When you habituate yourself to do things that move your life forward, you call them skills. When they hold your life back, you call them self-sabotage. They're both essentially the same function. Sometimes it happens by accident. Sometimes we just get used to living a certain way and fail to have a vision for how life could be different. Sometimes we make choices because we don't know how to make better ones or that anything else is even possible. Sometimes we settle for what we're handed because we don't know we can ask for more. Sometimes we run our lives on autopilot for long enough that we begin to think we no longer have a choice. However, most of the time, it's not accidental at all. The habits and behaviors you can't stop engaging in, no matter how destructive or limiting they may be, are intelligently designed by your subconscious to meet an unfulfilled need, displaced emotion, or neglected desire. Overcoming self-sabotage is not about trying to figure out how to override your impulses. It's first determining why those impulses exist in the first place. All right, I'm gonna pause there for a second because I forgot to get my charger in my laptop. Okay. All right. Now we got everything going here. Okay. Self-sabotage is often misunderstood to be a way in which we punish, deride, or intentionally hurt ourselves. On the surface, this seems true enough. Self-sabotage is committing to a healthier diet and finding yourself pulling up to the drive-thru a few hours later. It's identifying a market gap, conceiving an unprecedentedly brilliant business idea, then getting distracted and forgetting to begin working on it. It's having strange and terrifying thoughts and allowing them to paralyze you in the face of important life changes or milestones. It's knowing you have so much to be grateful for and excited about, and yet worrying anyway. And again, these are what she's saying are considered like self-sabotage behaviors. We often misattribute these behaviors to a lack of intelligence, willpower, or capability. That's usually not the case. Self-sabotage is not a way we hurt ourselves. It's a way we try to protect ourselves. What is self-sabotage? Self-sabotage is when you have two conflicting desires. One is conscious and one is unconscious. You know how you want to move your life forward, and yet you are still, for some reason, stuck. When you have big, ongoing, insurmountable issues in your life, especially when the solution seems so simple, so easy, and yet so impossible to stick with, what you have are not big problems, but big attachments. People are pretty incredible in the fact that they basically do whatever they want to do. This is true of everything in human life. Regardless of the potential consequences, human nature has revealed itself to be incredibly self-serving. People have almost a superhuman way of doing whatever they feel compelled to do, regardless of whom it could hurt, what wars it could spawn, or what future would be at risk. When you consider this, you begin to realize that if you're keeping something in your life, there has to be a reason you want it there. The only question is why. Hello. Some people can't figure out why they can't seem to motivate themselves enough to create a new business to facilitate their goal of becoming significantly wealthier, perhaps not realizing that they have a subconscious belief that to be rich is to be egocentric or disliked. Or perhaps they actually don't want to be super wealthy. Maybe it's a cover up for wanting to feel secure and taken care of, or their real desire is to be recognized for their art, and as this feels too unlikely to ever happen, they fall back on a secondary dream that doesn't actually motivate them. Some people say they want to be successful at any cost and yet don't want to log the hours of work it would take to get there. Perhaps it's because they understand at some level that being successful doesn't really make you happy nor liked. In fact, the opposite tends to be true. Success usually exposes you to jealousy and scrutiny. Successful people are not loved in the way that we imagine they would be. They're usually picked apart because envious people need to humanize them in some way. Perhaps instead of being successful, what many really want is just to be loved, and yet their ambition for success directly threatens that. Some people can't figure out why they keep choosing the wrong relationships. People whose patterns of rejection, abuse, or refusal to commit seem to be consistent. Perhaps they don't realize that they're actually recreating the relationship dynamics they experience when they're young because they associate love with loss or abandonment. Perhaps they want to recreate family relationships in which they felt helpless, but to live them again as an adult where they can help the addict, the liar, or the broken person. When it comes to self sabotaging behaviors, you have to understand that sometimes it's easy to get attached to having problems. Being successful can make you less liked. Finding love can make you more vulnerable. Making yourself less attractive can guard you. Playing small allows you to avoid scrutiny. Procrastinating puts you back in a place of comfort. Hello, one of the biggest fans for videos. I love them, so please, I only have money. I will have send you because they feel have to earn a lot of money. If I had a bank account, I would have send millions of money. I can only ask my mom if I can send you money. I'm making a lot of mistakes. It's okay. No, it's okay. I mean, if you are 18 and over, then you can read the story on Lamoon and support us that way. We also have memberships on YouTube, but that's also only if you're 18 and over. Otherwise, if you want to support the live, you can send gifts and things like that. Things like that. But like I said, as long as you're 18 and over. All the ways in which you're self-sabotaging are actually ways that you're feeding a need you probably don't realize you even have. Overcoming is not only a matter of learning to understand yourself better, but realizing that your problems are not problems, they're symptoms. You can't get rid of the coping mechanisms and think you've solved the problem. All right. What does self-sabotage look like? It's impossible to say decisively what self sabotage does or doesn't look like because certain habits and behaviors that can be healthy for one person can be unhealthy in another context. With that said, there are definitely some specific behaviors and patterns that are typically indicative of self sabotage. And they usually relate to being aware that there's a problem in your life, yet feeling the need to perpetuate it regardless. Here are some of the main signs that you're probably in a cycle of self sabotage. Resistance. Resistance is what happens when we have a new project that we need to work on and simply can't bring ourselves to do it. It's when we get into a great new relationship and then keep bailing on plans. It's when we get an amazing idea for a business and then feel tension and anger when it comes to sit down and actually get to work. We often feel resistance in the face of what's going right in our lives, not what's going wrong. When we have a problem to solve, resistance is usually nowhere to be found. But when we have something to enjoy, create, or build, we are tapping into a part of ourselves that is trying to thrive instead of just survive, and the unfamiliarity can be daunting. Resistance is your way of slowing down and making sure that it's safe to get attached to something new and important. In other cases, it can also be a warning sign that something isn't quite right and you might need to step back and regroup. Resistance is not the same thing as procrastination or indifference and shouldn't be treated as such. When we are experiencing resistance, there is always a reason and we have to pay attention. If we try to force ourselves to perform in the face of resistance, it usually intensifies the feeling as we're strengthening the internal conflict and triggering the fear that's holding us back in the first place. Instead, releasing resistance requires us to refocus. We have to get clear on what we want as well as when and why we want it. We have to identify unconscious beliefs that are preventing us from showing up. And then we have to step back into the work when we feel inspired. Wanting is the entryway to showing up after resistance. Thank you. I'm so glad that you liked the videos. As discussed before, there's only a certain amount of happiness that most of us will allow ourselves to feel. Gay Hendricks calls this your upper limit. As discussed before, there's only a certain amount of happiness that most of us will allow ourselves to feel. Gay Hendricks calls this your upper limit. Your upper limit is essentially the amount of good that you're comfortable having in your life. Your upper limit is essentially the amount of good that you're comfortable having in your life. It's your tolerance and threshold for having positive feelings or experiencing positive events. When you begin to surpass your upper limit, you start to unconsciously sabotage what's happening in order to bring yourself back to what's comfortable and familiar. I'm going to read that again. When you begin to surpass your upper limit, you start to unconsciously sabotage what's happening in order to bring yourself back to what's comfortable and familiar. For some people, this manifests physically, often as aches, pains, headaches, or physical tension. For others, it manifests emotionally as resistance, anger, guilt, or fear. It might seem totally counterintuitive, but we're not really wired to be happy. We're wired to be comfortable, and anything that's outside of that realm of comfort feels threatening or scary until we are comfortable with it or until we are familiar with it. Hitting your upper limit is a really great sign. It means that you're approaching and surpassing new levels of your life, and that is first and foremost something to congratulate yourself for. The way you resolve an upper limit problem is by slowly acclimating yourself to your new normal. The way you resolve an upper limit problem is by slowly acclimating yourself to your new normal. Instead of shocking yourself into big changes, allow yourself to slowly adjust and adapt. By taking it slow, you're allowing yourself to gradually reinstate a new comfort zone around what you want your life to be. Over time, you gradually shift your baseline to a new standard. Uprooting. Uprooting happens when someone finds themselves jumping from relationship to relationship or changing their business website again and again when they really need to focus on confronting relationship issues when they arise or taking care of clients they already have. In uprooting, you're not allowing yourself to blossom. You are only comfortable with the process of sprouting. So, I'm going to read that again. Uprooting happens when someone finds themselves jumping from relationship to relationship or changing their business website again and again when they really need to focus on confronting relationship issues when they arise or taking care of clients they already have. In uprooting, you are not allowing yourself to blossom. You are only comfortable with the process of sprouting. It might be consistently needing a fresh start, which is often the result of not having the healthy ways to deal with the stress or struggling with conflict resolution. So, fresh start happens when you don't have healthy ways to deal with stress or you're struggling with conflict resolution. Uprooting can be a way of diverting attention from the actual problems in your life, as your attention must go toward reestablishing oneself at a new job or in a new town. Ultimately, uprooting means you are always just beginning your new chapter, but never really finishing it. Despite your efforts to keep moving on, you end up more stuck than ever. Recognize the pattern. One of the primary symptoms of uprooting is not realizing that one is doing it. Therefore, the most important step is to become aware of what's happening. So, in order to stop uprooting, you have to first recognize the pattern. And one of the primary symptoms of uprooting is not realizing that you're doing it. Trace back your steps over the last few years. How many places have you moved or worked? Then figure out what is driving you away from each new thing you find. Next, you need to get clear on what you really want. Sometimes uprooting occurs because we step too quickly toward what we think we want, only to find that we didn't think it through and don't really want that thing very much. Clarity is key because you're thinking long term now. What would it look like to choose one place to live, then build connections there? What would it look like to work at the same place and move up in your position or build your business? Remember that healing from an uprooting pattern is not about settling for something you don't want, nor is it about staying in an unsafe or healthy situation because you don't want to move again. It's about getting clear and determined on what's the right path for you and then making a plan for how you can thrive, not just survive. When the moment comes that you would typically flee, confront the discomfort and stay where you are. Figure out why you are uncomfortable getting attached to one thing or another and determine what a healthy attachment would look like for you. Hold on one second. Okay. Thank you for sending the 100. I'm not sure what the 100 is of because it doesn't say, but I appreciate it. Okay. Perfectionism. I'm sure I clipped it here for some reason, probably because I struggle with this. All right, so let's get into this one. Here it is. When we expect that our work must be perfect the first time we do it, we end up getting into a cycle of perfectionism. Perfectionism isn't actually wanting everything to be right. It's not a good thing. In fact, it's a hindering thing because it sets up unrealistic expectations about what we are capable of, or what the outcomes of our lives could be. Perfectionism holds us back from showing up and trying or really doing the important work of our lives. This happens because when we are afraid of failing or feeling vulnerable or not being as good as we want others to think we are, we end up avoiding the work that is required to actually become that good. We sabotage ourselves because it's the willingness to show up and simply do it again and again and again that ultimately brings us to a place of mastery. Oh, thank you. Thanks for sending the gift. Hello, Sachi on TikTok. Don't worry about doing it well, just do it. Don't worry about writing a bestseller, just write. Don't worry about making a Grammy winning hit, just make music. Don't worry about failing, just keep showing up and trying. At first, all that matters is that you do what you really want to do. From there, you can learn from your mistakes and over time get to the place where you really want to be. The truth is that we actually don't accomplish great feats when we're anxious about whether or not we will do what we do will indeed be something impressive and world changing. We accomplish these sorts of things when we simply show up and allow ourselves to create something meaningful and important to us. Instead of perfection, focus on progress. Instead of having something done perfectly, focus on just getting it done. From there, you can edit, build, grow, and develop it to exactly what your vision is. But if you don't get started, you'll never arrive. On TikTok, it says some of the comments were filtered or hidden, so you can just try again. I want to reflect on this for a second because I know I had this little clip here because this is something I always struggle with. This perfectionism is something I'm constantly battling. Even with my story now, I find that understanding why I'm not getting things done helps me to obviously becoming aware of it helps me to address it easier. Automatic conversion ups. What is that? What does that mean? So like one of my biggest struggles right now is writing the Patreon content. These are spicy mini stories that we write for Patreon, and one of my biggest struggles with them, to be honest, is that sometimes I feel really embarrassed. I feel like I'm gonna be judged or people aren't gonna like it or something like that. So I start to get a lot of perfectionism and like I tend to procrastinate a lot in writing it because I feel like, oh, it has to be perfect. It has to be like the ones that I personally read. It has to be to the level of that story writing, or people aren't going to like it, or, you know, stuff like that. Those are the thoughts that I have. And while I'm having those thoughts and I go through this kind of like state of being in that space, the only way that really brings me down is to just say to myself that I'm doing something that I really enjoy doing, and it's better to just get it done than to, you know, leave it on the back burner, right? Leaving on the back burner, not really addressing I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Leaving on the back burner, not doing it all is worse than not doing like a little at a time, because what ends up happening is that if I don't get it done, then because it's on a strict deadline too, like there's certain rollout that we have to do, I get even more anxiety because then I'm like, oh no, like we missed the deadline, or people are going to start canceling and things like that. So when it gets to that point, like this whole entire book is talking about that kind of break breaking point. When it gets to that point for me, when I've reached like max anxiety because of my perfectionism, I have to just make a decision, and I have to just be like, I have to sit down, I have to do it. And then again, I even struggle a little bit with this resistance thing. So even though this is something that I do enjoy doing, I do have a lot of resistance sometimes when it comes to it because of these other things that go on. But understanding that most of the time it's just because I'm like a little embarrassed for writing some of this stuff, and like it feels like I'm putting all of myself out for the world. Like I have to really sit with that, and I have to be like, it's okay. People are here because they enjoy my writing, they enjoy my characters, and at the end of the day, this is something that I'm doing to entertain you guys and things like that. So I really have to like acknowledge the behavior. So acknowledge that I'm procrastinating, that I'm not doing the work because I feel this perfectionism. Then I have to so acknowledge it, then I have to make the decision to actually do it. And then that's where some of this other book will come in too. Doing a little bit at a time rather than waiting until the the final breaking point, and it's like I I waited too long. Doing a little bit at a time is definitely something that can help with somebody who has perfectionism. So if you struggle with perfectionism and you struggle with the procrastination that comes with the perfectionism, doing some of the things that James Clear talks about in his Atomic Habits book, where you do like just a little bit at a time every day, or however you decide that you want to schedule it, that can help to fight the procrastination that will that goes hand in hand with the perfectionism. So I hope I kind of like talked about that in a way that makes sense. but yeah, so I definitely struggle with this. But moving on. Again, we're reading The Mountain Is You by Brianna Weist. And right now we're talking about, she's listing through all these different things that she says are what self-sabotage looks like. So she's going through different types of ways that you might be self-sabotaging. And so far we talked about resistance, we talked about hitting your upper limits, we talked about uprooting, and we talked about perfectionism so far. So these are just a few ways that you might be self-sabotaging. Okay, let's continue. Limited emotional processing skills. In life, there are going to be people, situations, and circumstances that are upsetting, infuriating, saddening, and even enraging. There will likewise be people, situations, and circumstances that are inspiring, hopeful, helpful, and truly offer purpose and meaning in your life. When you're only able to process half of your emotions, you stunt yourself. You start going out of your way to avoid any possible situation that could bring up something frustrating or uncomfortable because you have no tools to be able to handle that feeling. This means that you start avoiding the very risks and actions that would ultimately change your life for the better. In addition, an inability to process your emotions means you get stuck with them. You sit and dwell on your anger and your sadness because you don't know how to make them go away. When we can only process half of our emotions, we ultimately only live half of the life we really want to. Healthy emotional processing looks different for everyone, but generally involves these steps. Get clear on what happened, validate your feelings, and determine a course correction. First, you need to understand why you're upset or the reason why something is bothering you so much. Without clarity on this, you'll continue to waste your time mulling over the details without really understanding what's hurting you so much. Next, you have to validate how you feel. Recognize that you're not alone. Anyone in your situation would probably feel similar and does, and that what you feel is absolutely okay. In doing this, you can allow yourself a physical release such as crying, shaking, journaling about what you feel, or talking to a trusted friend. Once you're clear on what's wrong and have allowed yourself to fully express the extent of your emotions, you can determine how you will change your behavior or thought process so that you get an outcome that you really want in the future. Justification. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for sending that. I think I can send a heart. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Your life is ultimately measured by your outcomes, not your intentions. It's not about what you wanted to do or what, or, okay, let me read that again. Hold on. Your life is ultimately measured by your outcomes, not your intentions. It's not about what you wanted to do or would have done but didn't have the time. It's not about why you thought you couldn't. It's just whether or not you eventually did. When you're in a pattern of self-sabotaging behavior, you're often treating those excuses the same way you would treat measurable outcomes. You're using them to make yourself feel momentarily satisfied, using them as a replacement for the accomplishment itself. Now, I kind of like that. Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. This here, it says, I'm gonna read this part again. This right here I think is important. Your life is ultimately measured by your outcomes, not your intentions. So like, excuse me, let me get some water. If you're a comic creator, a writer, an artist, content creator, anything like that, and you're thinking about doing something or you want to do something, those would be like your intentions. Like you intend on doing those things, but the problem is that you never actually start. Am I gonna join you? Wait, join. Are you going to join me? Join doing where? Doing what? Hi. I'm reading The Mountain Is You, by Brianna West. And yesterday we read chapter 1, and earlier I just read a couple quotes from the book from chapter 1, and now I'm reading chapter 2. And this is on my YouTube channel, so the whole thing will be on my channel after too. And then for TikTok, you can watch it on YouTube, but I'm live on TikTok as well right now. Thank you. I'm so glad that you're here. My voice is pretty. Thank you. I think my voice is kind of weird sometimes. Sometimes I change it depending on what I'm doing. It's morning or night there. It's night at South Africa. Oh, you're in South Africa? That's awesome. I'm in America. I'm on like the East Coast. Get a little bit more water. So if you guys don't know who I am, my name is Jane Elise, and I have a comic called When the Silent Bird Sings, and this is the account that it's on right now, or that you're on right now. This is my comic account. You can read the comic on an app called Lamoon, and it's linked on both TikTok and on YouTube in my bio. It's a romance drama. So if you're into like webcomics or webtoons and things like that, if you like K-dramas and things like that, you'll definitely like my story. And honestly, like if you've seen a lot of my videos that we post, we do make the videos really funny, and like relatable, but the story is definitely a lot more serious than the content that we put on social media. So just keep that in mind. If you see my content and then you go to my comic expecting the story to be like super silly and funny, it's not. It's like it is in some places, like I do try to keep it light in some places, but it is a drama. So there are, it's got that aspect to it too. But we just launched an episode on the 7th. So this is what I meant by like I try to keep it a little light and airy. So these are like this is a panel from the newest episode. Super cute little chibi version of San and Gia. But I mean, hopefully, with you guys seeing some of the content, if you have, you're pretty familiar with the characters now. I try to at least with the content, I try to keep it related to sort of what the story's about. So, like the newer one that I just posted the other day with Maya, she's San's assistant. It's like Maya, San, and Gia, and San broke his neck, so he's wearing like a neck brace. Actually, let me just show you. That's completely non-canon. That's completely non-canon. That has never happened. Maya isn't a doctor. But it's just kind of funny because the dynamic is like kind of similar to the story. Oh, you saw it on Webtoon? Yeah, we're on Webtoon too. We have the first 5 episodes on Webtoon. But you are missing an episode. That episode's only on the moon because it's a spicy episode, so you can't read it on Webtoon. But
Okay,
this one here,
Let's set this up.
this one's funny.
Yours? He's got stuck again. Ooh, what's wrong with this? Stuck again.
Oh my god. This is like part 2 of a previous short that we did. The first one was that Maya was his hairstylist, and now she's his doctor. So silly stuff like that, but like I said, the comic itself is a lot different. Besides this part of it, but let's see. The next episode will be coming out on the 17th. Yeah, definitely download it for sure. Yeah, so I'm a content creator, so like I have a bunch of phones and ring lights and shit like that. I have a bunch of stuff like that, tripods and cameras and things. But yeah, so if you get Lamoon, if you download it, it's an app. You can read some of the stories on like on the website, but for our story, you have to download the app because we're mature, 18 plus story. If you download the app, we also have it available in different languages too. I keep forgetting to say that because we just launched some of the other languages here. French has up till episode 5 or up until episode 1 part 5 here, and the first 4 releases here are free, and then these ones are with coins. So we have French pretty much up till that, but the other ones we're still working on releasing the rest of the episodes here. And on Lamoon we're gonna have all the translations available. Webtoon will only have previews. So if you see it on Webtoon under one of the different languages, yes, it's there, but it's only going to have a preview. So we'll have it in French, Indonesian, obviously English, and then this is how you like change the language. You just like click that. It's in Portuguese, Spanish, and German. these are the ones that I have available right now. And these are just kind of like a preview, just showing kind of like the art for you guys, and hopefully the correct title in the different languages and things. I have human translators that I used and hired for this project. So for the translation projects. So hopefully with that, plus my proofreaders, the translations are okay. I really struggled a little bit with some of these, like French. I have no knowledge of any French, so I really had to rely on my proofreader for that, and Indonesian, because I also have no idea about Indonesian. I studied German for a while, so I was more familiar with the German. Spanish, obviously. Portuguese also, I wasn't really sure. So again, I really had to rely on the proofreader and the human translator. But yeah, so some of them I was able to definitely check on to just be like, okay. And I did catch a couple things too. Like I know for like even this, I have to change this. This says "Du findest ich auf," and I know it's supposed to say "mich auf," so that's something I have to change. But yeah, so we have those languages available. I'm also going to be doing Hindi, Urdu, Turkish, Russian, Korean, Japanese, and Chinese. So we're gonna have like over 10 or 15 different languages. But the great thing about Lamoon, actually, I'm like talking about this for a minute. We'll get back to the book in a second. But the great thing about Lamoon is that it actually has over 60 languages that you can translate the whole entire site in. So right now it's in English, obviously, unlock and read and recently read and things like that. But you can also just change the actual language itself. If you go to content and display, you go to languages, you can choose an app language, and you can also choose, which is going to change like the whole entire app. So you can see all these different languages that they have available. And then you can also choose the translation language. So if you only speak, which I don't really know if that would be working right now because I'm speaking English. So I don't know if you'd understand, but if you, for some reason you only spoke one of these languages, or you knew somebody that only spoke, say, German, right? You can just change the language of the whole entire app, similar to Webtoon. So let's see what that does. Let's see if that worked. Did it work? Or actually, I totally did that wrong. I meant to say that you can change the language of the comics into the language. That's what I meant to say. But you can also choose the app language. So if I choose, let's do Deutsch. Okay. So now you can see that the app itself is in the language that you need it. So change it back. Let me see if I can figure this out. Yeah, go back to English. And now it's back to English. And then for this one, this would choose the language of the comic. So they have a bunch of different languages, and then they also are really flexible. So if you needed a certain language, they can just add it. So very flexible with that, which is great because Webtoon Canvas is a little bit of a mess, I think, when it comes to that. And also, I think on Webtoon, they only have like, what, 6 different languages? I think they have like English, Spanish, German, no, they don't even have Portuguese. They have English, Spanish. Let's look right now. Let's see what they have. They have, so this is Webtoon. They have, where is it? I don't even know. Oh, content language. Okay. Choose your content language. Let's see. Yeah, this is all they have. They only have these languages for Webtoon, which is crazy because you'd think like they're like the leading comic provider. Am I wrong? Like, are you able to read comics in other languages on like other apps or something? Am I not familiar with it? Because like I said, as far as I've known, you've only been able to read webtoons in these languages. So Webtoon has English, whatever that one is. Is this Chinese? Is this Mandarin or something? Thai, Indonesian, Spanish, French, and German. Right? I thought and then they have Korean, but like that's on like the Korean side, like the Naver side or whatever. So, yeah, so that's it. That's all you get for the languages, I guess. Unless I'm missing something, unless I'm like not familiar with where you guys are reading the comics in other languages. So Lamoon is great. Lamoon has all those languages that I just showed you. Ton of different languages here. If we go back to just like the app language, the language that you can change all of the text on the entire app: English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, German, Korean, I'm assuming Mandarin, and maybe some other kind of Mandarin, Indonesian, Thai. This looks like Russian, Afrikaans, and a lot of other ones. Catalan, Dansk, which I think is like Dutch or something. Filipino. Oh, we're also gonna get it in we actually have it in Filipino. I think episode 1 is done in Filipino, so I'm gonna be working on that. Italiano. Oh, we also have Italian too, but I have to get my proofreader to read over that. But we have the entire all 5 episodes in Italian ready. Netherlands, Norsk, Polski, which I guess is like maybe Polish, Romanian, Slovensina, Turkish, Kiswahili, Vietnam or Vietnamese. Maybe this is like Arabic. Did I say Arabic earlier? I meant to say Urdu, Hindu, and Arabic, and then Turkish and Russian were the other ones that I was gonna do. For like the European ones, we have Italian, we have Filipino, and we have Thai. I just have to get a proofreader for that. So yeah, we have like almost all of these, and like I said, they can literally just add new languages. Oh, you just downloaded. Yes, awesome. Definitely read the story, subscribe to the series, and let me also show you how to do the coins thing too, because a lot of the stories on Lamoon you won't need coins for. A lot of them are just free, but some of them you might need, like mine. So the way that you do that is just you go to coins like that, or you can also go to shop. Either way, it's going to bring you to the same screen. But you do that, and then they have a bunch of different bundles here, but you can honestly just focus on these top 3 right here. You can do 100 coins, 300 coins, or basically like 600 coins. You get 500 plus 100 bonus. So 100, 300, 600, it's $1.99, $4.99, or $9.99. It's not a subscription or anything, so it's a one-time purchase. It's not going to continue charging you if you do purchase one of these. So you can know that, but I've been saying for my series, at least, depending on like other series, whichever episodes you want to look at. But besides that, my series, I suggest maybe the $4.99 or the $9.99 if you want to be covered for like everything that we currently have, and then also for the future episodes for the rest of the summer and things. Because every episode is 30 coins. So really, if you think about it, like every 100, like, you know, every about 100 coins is like 3 episodes. So if you get the $1.99, you'll be able to buy 3 episodes. If you get the $4.99, it'll be 9 episodes, and then the $9.99 would be 3 times that, so 18 or something like that. Math is not my strong suit. But yeah, so, and that's all you do. And like I said, it's a one-time purchase. You just go through like the Apple Store or whatever. And yeah, or if you have Google Play, that works too. And that's how it works. But yeah, let me see how I get out of that. So hopefully that's helpful. And then you'll be all set. And then, like I said, we launch on the 7th, the 17th, and the 27th for new episodes for now. And yeah, so that'll be on there. I also do uncensored and censored versions of my episodes. So I try to do that to be culturally sensitive, just in case you still want to read the episodes, but you don't necessarily want to see the things that are in the episodes. And I also have I also have the uncensored version if you don't really mind it at all. So there's two versions. I like to say that just so you don't buy both of them, because you don't need to buy both of them. But they're both available. Like this right here is just two versions of the same episode, but one's uncensored and one's censored. So yeah. Yep. I like to just let you guys know that. So like I can show you kind of like for the censored version, like what it would look like. For this episode, there's just one panel versus the other ones, but the censored would look something like that. So you would still kind of see a little bit, but you're not going to see everything on it. All right. Yeah. So that's that. But let me know if you have any other questions about that. And we'll go back to reading. Okay. So we had just been reading chapter 2. And again, we were reading the part of chapter 2 where she's talking about what does self-sabotage look like. And she ran through a couple different things. So far we've looked at what self-sabotage looks like. It looks like resistance, hitting your upper limits, uprooting, perfectionism, and now we're in limited emotional processing skills. So let's continue with that. Okay, so let me reread this part because it's been a minute. In life, there are going to be people, situations, and circumstances that are upsetting, infuriating, saddening, and even enraging. There will likewise be people, situations, and circumstances that are inspiring, hopeful, helpful, and truly offer purpose and meaning in your life. When you're only able to process half of your emotions, you stunt yourself. You start going out of your way to avoid any possible situation that could bring up something frustrating or uncomfortable because you have no tools to be able to handle that feeling. This means that you start avoiding the various risks and actions that would ultimately change your life for the better. In addition, an inability to process your emotions means you get stuck with them. You sit and dwell on your anger and sadness because you don't know how to make them go away. When we can only process half of our emotions, we ultimately only live half of the life we really want to. Healthy emotional processing looks different for everyone, but generally involves these steps. Get clear on what happened. Validate your feelings. Determine a course correction. First, you need to understand why you're upset or the reason why something is bothering you so much. Without clarity on this, you'll continue to waste your time mulling over the details without really understanding what's hurting you so much. Next, you have to validate how you feel. Recognize that you're not alone. Anyone in your situation would probably feel similarly, and does, and that what you feel is absolutely okay. In doing this, you can allow yourself a physical release, such as crying, shaking, journaling about what you feel, or talking to a trusted friend. Once you're clear on what's wrong and have allowed yourself to fully express the extent of your emotions, you can determine how you will change your behavior or thought process so that you get an outcome that you really want in the future. Justification. Your life is ultimately measured by your outcomes, not your intentions. It's not about what you wanted to do or would have done, but didn't have the time. It's not about why you thought you couldn't It's just whether or not you eventually did. When you're in a pattern of self sabotaging behavior, you're often treating these excuses the same way you treat measurable outcomes. You're using them to make yourself feel momentarily satisfied, using them as a replacement for the accomplishment itself. When we have a goal, dream, or plan, there's no measure of intent. It's only whether you did it or didn't. Any other reason you offer for not showing up and doing the work is simply you stating that you prioritize that reason over your ultimate ambition, which means that it will always take precedence in your life. You may also be using excuses to help navigate away from uncomfortable feelings that are ultimately necessary for your growth. Start measuring your outcomes and focusing on at least doing one productive thing each day. It's no longer about how many days you really wanted to go to the gym, it's about how many days you actually did. It's no longer about wanting to show up for your friends, it's whether you did or you didn't. It's no longer about the great ideas you had about how to change your business, it's about whether or not you did. Stop accepting your own excuses. Stop being complacent with your own justifications. Start quantifying your days by how many healthy, positive things you accomplished, and you will see how quickly you begin to make progress. Hello. A big fan of yours. I really enjoy watching videos. Thank you. I'm so glad to have you here. I want to reflect on this for a second because I think if you struggle with this justification self-sabotage behavior, then definitely having this book would be really helpful because like she was saying with the justification, she said start measuring your outcomes and focusing on at least doing one productive thing each day. And that's essentially the whole concept of the Atomic Habits kind of framework that James Clear talks about, which is basically doing like one or doing things so you're 1% better every day. That's kind of like the thing. Aggregation of marginal gains, which means just like the accumulation of small progress that you make every day. So if you do feel like you struggle with that self-sabotage, definitely grab this book here. All right, disorganization. And honestly, like I'm feeling like I probably do all these, honestly. I don't know about you guys, but I'm like, yeah. A lot of these are relatable. All right, disorganization. By leaving our lives and spaces in disarray, we're not just mindlessly forgetting to take care of our surroundings. We're often actually creating distractions and chaos that serve an unconscious purpose. A clean, organized space, both for work and for living, is essential to thriving. This means a tidy home, clothes that are easy to reach and put together each morning, a clean kitchen and an organized desk. Paperwork should be filed in one space, your bedroom should be calming, and everything should have a home that it can return to at the end of the day. Without cleanliness, we create fewer opportunities for ourselves. Nothing positive nor beautiful flows from chaos. Deep down, we know this. Often, when we are self-sabotaging through disorganization, it's because when we are very clean or organized, we get an uneasy feeling. That uneasy feeling is what we are trying to avoid because it's the recognition that now that everything is in order, we must get to work on doing what we need to do or who we want to become. When we leave our spaces messy, we're always a few tasks or priorities away from stepping out and showing up. Like anything, you need to start slow and adjust yourself over time. To declutter and reorganize, start with one room, and if that's too much, try one corner, drawer, or closet. Work on that and only that, and then implement a routine that maintains the organization. Again, everything about this goes right back to Atomic Habits, which, like I said before, is what's going to teach us how to implement a lot of these things. From there, start arranging your space so that it works for you, not against you. Put something soothing on your bedside table, like a diffuser, or create an organized family calendar in the kitchen so appointments and schedules are visible to others. If you have trouble with the mail being disorganized, create a spot for it to go when it comes in each day. If you have trouble with laundry being disorganized, create a system for it and decide on a day or two that you do the wash and do it in bulk. You must slowly let yourself get used to working at a clean desk, and eventually it will become second nature. You'll begin to realize that you also feel so much less stress and much more in control of your life. Hello. What's up, Kim? It's very hard to show up as the person you want to be when you are surrounded by an environment that makes you feel like the person you aren't. That part. Do I remember you? Possibly. Maybe. What did we talk about before? Man, I feel like I do all of these. I feel like I'm like on the witness stand right now, and they got counts for me right now. They're like, count 1, disorganization. Count 2, perfectionism. All right. Again, if you're just coming in, we're reading The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest, about drawing something. I don't know. Okay. Did you commission me for something? I have a commission I need to finish. But yeah, we're reading The Mountain Is You. All right. Attachment to what you don't really want. Sometimes your dreams for your life are adopted from other people's preferences. In other cases, you determine what you want and then you outgrow your old ambitions. Sometimes we fight endlessly to try to force ourselves to want something that we don't really want, and it always leaves us empty because it isn't a genuine desire. This is different than lacking motivation or experiencing resistance. Our inability to perform is not based in fear or lack of skill. It's based in an inherent knowing that this is not what we want for our lives, and perhaps we're feeling lost or unable to change our path. When you find yourself struggling with something, you have to ask yourself, do I actually want this? Do I actually want to do this? Do you want the job, or do you just like how the title sounds? Are you in love with the person, or do you like the idea of the relationship? Are you still holding on? Are you still holding an outdated idea of what your greatest success will be? And if so, what would it look like to let that go? At the end of the day, self-sabotage sometimes functions to show us that we aren't quite on the right path yet, and that we need to reevaluate to determine what would feel best for our lives, even if that means we disappoint some people or even our younger selves. We don't have to live the rest of our lives trying to achieve some measure of success we thought was ideal when we were too young to understand who we even were. Our only responsibility is to make decisions for the person we have become. Be willing to accept that maybe your success story doesn't look the way that you once thought it might. Maybe the kind of success you're really hungry for is to feel at peace each day, or making your life about travel instead of work. Maybe it's about having thriving friendships or a happy relationship. Maybe the business you got into 10 years ago isn't the business you want to be in forever. Maybe the work you thought you'd love isn't coming as naturally to you as you'd hope. When we let go of what isn't right for us, we create space to discover what is. I like that. When we let go When we let go of what isn't right for us, we create space to discover what is. However, doing so requires the tremendous courage to put our pride aside and see things for what they really are. Judging others. We all know that gossiping or judging other people's lives and choices isn't a healthy or positive way to connect with other people. However, it does far more damage than we realize, as it sets up barriers to our own success. If we feel bad about not being as successful as another person, we might try to find something negative about them to make ourselves feel better. If we do that every time we come across a person who is more successful than we are, we begin to associate that level of success with being disliked. When it comes time for us to take action to move our lives forward, we're going to resist doing it because becoming more successful will create a breach in our self-concept. I need to read that again. Right now I'm reading from this book here, The Mountain Is You. If we do that every time we come across a person who is more successful than we are, we begin to associate that level of success with being disliked. When it comes time for us to take action to move our lives forward, we're going to resist doing it because becoming more successful will create a breach in our self-concept. In other cases, you might have heard people you grew up around villainizing others who had money. They might have said things like, oh, rich people are the worst. Maybe they chalked all the wealthy people up to being morally corrupt. This sweeping characterization sealed itself in your subconscious, and now you find yourself sabotaging your own attempts to become financially healthy because you associate it with guilt and being disliked. When we set up judgments for others, they become rules that we have to play by too. By judging others for what we don't have or because we envy them, we sabotage our own lives far more than we ever really hurt anybody else. Many people say that you have to love yourself first before you can love others, but really, if you learn to love others, you will learn to love yourself. Practice non-judgment through non-assumption. Instead of reaching a conclusion about a person based on the limited information you have about them, consider that you're not seeing the whole picture and don't know the whole story. When you are more compassionate about other people's lives, you become more compassionate about your own. When you see someone who has something that you want, you congratulate them, even if it feels hard at first. It will extend back and open you up to receiving it as well. I want to reflect on this. When you are more compassionate about other people's lives, you become more compassionate about your own. When you see someone who has something you want, congratulate them, even if it feels hard at first. It will extend back and open up to you receiving it as well. Now, I said yesterday that personally for me, I've experienced this with family members who had this kind of mindset about rich people, money, things like that. And it really affects them, I think, a lot when I look at it in this way, where they have this negative idea about rich people. Oh, rich people, and like they're always doing this, or that's how they are, and blah 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 blah. It's like, a certain thing, but that family member isn't rich themselves and really struggles sometimes with financial stuff, but not because they're not financially capable or responsible, but I think the limitations in their mind about the opportunities that could lead to more financial freedom, they're not allowing them to think of it in that way because of this kind of a thing, because of these negative associations with being wealthy or having money and things like that. And then this part about here, jealousy and envy. So being an artist, we were talking about being an artist yesterday, being a comic creator, and how easy it can be to feel jealous or feel envious about other people's success or their highlights on their Instagram or the posts they make on their Instagram. It's all their art and the art looks amazing. And you're always wondering like how they do that. Like I want that. Just being jealous, having that envy, things like that. It might feel like it's admiration at some points, but if it's in any kind of negative light, that's when I feel like it could maybe be more leaning towards jealousy or the envy. So if it's that situation, this is kind of what I was feeling for this was that it says when you're compassionate about other people's lives, you become more compassionate about your own. So that to me is like what she said before this too, understanding that like as an artist, there's a lot of work that goes into those final drawings. Like even though that person might have that final drawing and they show it and it's great, you don't know all the sketches that that person had to do in their lifetime being an artist to be able to even get to that point. And it's really important to think of things in that way because then it will allow you to be compassionate, like she says, to your own journey and give yourself grace that, yeah, maybe you're not, you know, high level artistry or anything like that person that you're looking at or whatever it is. But you have to look at your own journey and reflect on your own journey compassionately, like, hey, I got to this point and I had a beginning too. So that's what I wanted to reflect on for that. This part here, when you see someone who has something you want, congratulate them, even if it feels hard at first. It can be really, really hard to sit in the same energy as somebody who you see succeeding and succeeding more than you or succeeding in doing things that you are not. And that's like this whole entire chapter is about, that self-sabotage, like being jealous, feeling envy because they're doing things that you're not, especially when you're in a place where you're not reflecting on your own failures or your own situation and how to fix it. This kind of a thing is something that will feel really hard. But like she says, if you do it and you do it genuinely and you do it with positive energy and with the mindset of like, instead of, oh, I hate them because they have what I want, instead of that, if you do it and you speak to these people in ways where it's more intentional, like, wow, that's really awesome that you did that's happening for you. I'm so happy for you. And I'm happy that that's happening for you. And you think to yourself like, wow, I really want that. Like, I really would love to be that person, having all those things and having, you know, that level of success. And I will be there someday. Like, I will be there someday. And I'm going to continue to do what I need to do to potentially get there one day. That's a much better attitude to have than to sit in this more negative energy where you're just spewing negative energy to them, like, oh, I hope they fail, and like, I don't want to say congratulations because, you know, I don't want to give them any more or like be any more of a contribution to their success because I don't have success. So don't be that type of person. Be the type of person that's open and willing and intentional about the energy that you give people, because I truly believe karma is a bitch. But I also believe that we live and we connect with people energetically, and in life in general, like if you put out a lot of positive energy and positive vibes, you will be more receptive. Like she says here, it will extend back to you and open you up to receiving it as well. You will be more receptive to having more positive things happen to you as well. But if you continue to have that kind of closed mind, negative energy, jealousy, envious kind of mindset, you will close yourself off to other opportunities and other positive things. It's just a fact. Positive energy will definitely attract more positive energy. So that's what I wanted to reflect on for that part. All right, let's continue. Pride is often involved in many of our worst decisions. Sometimes we know our relationship is wrong, but the shame of leaving seems worse than staying. Sometimes we start a business and realize we don't really like it very much or refuse to accept that we need to change or ask for help. In these cases, our pride is getting in the way. We are making decisions based on how we imagine people view our lives, not how they actually are. This is not only inaccurate, but it's also very unhealthy. To overcome our attachment to pride, we have to start to see ourselves more wholly and honestly. Instead of thinking that we need to prove to everyone around us how perfect and flawless we are, we can imagine ourselves more realistically as people who, despite our weaknesses, are trying our best. In the end, it looks far worse to hold on to what's wrong. In the end, it looks far worse to hold on to what's wrong because you care about what others think than it is to let go because that's what's right for you. People will respect you far more if you can acknowledge that you are an imperfect person, like everyone else, learning, adapting, and trying your best. In reaching this mindset, you also open yourself up to learning. By not assuming you know everything or that you need to seem perfect, you can admit when you're wrong, ask for assistance, and lean on others sometimes. Basically, you open yourself back up to growth, and your life is better for it in the long term. In a world, this is guilt of succeeding. Ooh, this is what I'm struggling with right now, actually. Yep. I'm definitely going through this right now. All right, guilt of succeeding. In a world of so much pain, horror, and misfortune, who are we to have happy, abundant lives? That's the thought process that so many people go through. One of the biggest mental barriers people face is the guilt that comes with finally having enough or more than one needs. This can come from many different sources, but it ultimately boils down to feeling as though you don't deserve to have it. This feeling often comes up when we start to earn more money or have nicer things. Often, people will sabotage their higher incomes with reckless discretionary spending or by being less vigilant about their clientele or workload because they are not quite comfortable with having more than the basic necessities. And so they put themselves back into a comfortable feeling of lack. I was just saying this the other day, how I had a point in my life a few years ago where I was making a lot of money and I was able to sort of level up a little bit in my life. And I had this guilt of success. And I ended up self-sabotaging by spending a lot of the money, even though it was usually stuff that I wanted and needed. For like the business and things that I was doing, but I ended up being really reckless and financially irresponsible and things. And I remember feeling like having thousands of dollars in my account was more uncomfortable than having close to zero in my account. And so when I think back on that now, and especially with this current situation that I'm dealing with, I just think about like how that's so strange. Like it's counterintuitive. And reading this now and kind of reflecting on these things that I need to work on is definitely going to be helpful to keep that kind of thing in my awareness that this is what it is and this is how we're going to fix it. So let's keep reading and we'll see how to fix this. Hello on YouTube. I'm going to read this again though. This feeling often comes up when we start to earn more money or have nicer things. Often people will sabotage their higher incomes with reckless discretionary spending or by being less vigilant about their clientele or workload because they're not quite comfortable having more than the basic necessities, and so they put themselves back into a comfortable feeling of lack. When it comes to success, guilt is an unfortunately common emotion, especially for good-hearted people who want to do the right thing and live authentic lives. Please realize that most extremely successful people have no guilt whatsoever. In fact, this feeling usually only comes up when you're stepping between not having enough and finally having enough. So this feeling usually only comes up when you're stepping between not having enough and finally having enough. What you have to realize is that money and success are tools. They buy you back time and offer you the opportunity to help employ, influence, and change the lives of others. Instead of looking at your success as a status differentiator, which will always make you feel bad and uncomfortable, see it instead as a tool with which you can do important and positive things in the world and in your life. Which I like that kind of mindset switch. Fear of failing. I thought I was going to read 4 chapters today, and it's already been like an hour and a half, so I don't know if I'm going to read 4 chapters. Although this chapter is just really, really long, too. It is really long. Alright. Fear of failing. How often do we not even attempt something because we are afraid to look bad or fail immediately? The fear of failing is often something that holds people back from putting in the work they would need to become truly great at something, but it can also take another, more insidious form. Once we have established something new in our lives, this fear can come up as a constant irrational worry that we're missing something, that our partner is being unfaithful, or that we're one misstep away from losing it all. These catastrophic thoughts happen when we want to shield ourselves from potential loss. They only come up when we finally have something we care about enough, or we care enough about and really want to keep. So the fear of failing is often something that holds people back from putting in the work they would need to become truly great at something. These thoughts happen when we want to shield ourselves from potential loss. They only come up when we finally have something we care about enough and really want to keep. There's a difference between failing because you're trying something new and daring and failing because you are not showing up, doing the work, or being responsible for your actions. There's a difference between failing because you are trying something new and daring and failing because you are not showing up, doing the work, or being responsible for your actions. These are two very different experiences and should be separated in your mind. As scary as it might be to not be great at something initially, or perhaps even experience a loss, it's even worse to fail by virtue of never trying and always playing small. Failure is inevitable, but you have to make sure it's happening for the right reasons. When we fail out of negligence, we take a step back. When we fail because we are attempting new feats, we take one step closer to what will work. Downplaying. When we downplay our successes in life, we're either trying to make ourselves seem less impressive so others do not feel threatened and therefore like us more, or we're trying to avoid the sense that we have made it because we're afraid of peaking. Though so Though so many of us long for the moment when we feel as though we have finally arrived and achieved the measures of success we so deeply desire, we often receive them only to then feel as though they aren't that great, impressive, or that they don't make us feel as good as we thought they would. This happens because of downplaying. The idea of having made it makes us afraid that we are reaching the pinnacle and therefore will fall off of it. If we acknowledge that we've arrived, what goals remain? It's a feeling akin to death, so we instead find another measure to work toward. Likewise, when we are around other people, we don't stand firmly in our pride because we're taught it is a bad thing. And when done in an unhealthy way, it is. What we're sensing is the feeling of being better than others because we have achieved something. This makes us uncomfortable because we know it's both untrue and unkind. We can all acknowledge and appreciate other people's diverse accomplishments and talents while still being happy about our own. Instead of shrugging off a compliment, we can respond by saying, "Thank you, I worked very hard, and I'm happy to be here." If the fear is that we are peaking too soon, we have to reform our idea of progress. We do not get better only to get worse again. We do not achieve one thing only to lose it and return to what we were before. That instinct is a self-sabotaging behavior, one that wants to keep us within our old comfort zone. Instead, we can acknowledge that when one part of our life improves, it radiates out to everything else. When we achieve one thing, we are better equipped for the future. Life tends to gradually get better as we keep working on it. It only gets worse if we accomplish something, then shut down because we are intimidated by our own power. Unhealthy habits. This is the most common way that people sabotage their own success, by maintaining habits that are actively keeping them away from their goals. This is when someone declares that they want to be in better shape but doesn't change anything they do each day to facilitate that. Or when they want to make a change professionally but find ways to make it difficult, if not impossible, for them to actually do it. At the core of all these behaviors is the fact that one part of our psyche understands that we should be evolving and moving forward with our lives, and another part is intimidated by the potential discomfort it would bring. Usually, this culminates in so much inner tension and frustration that a breaking point is reached and changes are made from there. One part of our psyche understands that we should be evolving and moving forward with our lives, and another part is intimidated by the potential discomfort it would bring. However, the goal is to not have to get to a crisis point in your life before you can become aware of the ways you're holding yourself back from living peacefully and comfortably. Define health on your own terms. What does a healthy life look like for you? How would it make you feel, and what would you be doing? It's difficult to look solely to anyone else's definition of healthfulness, particularly because we're all different people with varying needs, preferences, and schedules. Instead, figure out what makes you feel best. Decide what combination of healthy eating, exercise, and sleep is right for you, and stick to it. Like so many things, healthy habits are best established gradually. Instead of trying to force yourself to take an hour at the gym at 6 a.m., Try instead to do 15 minutes, or perhaps swap out with a class you really enjoy, or go at a time when go at a time that works better for your schedule. Make it easy for you to succeed. Prep your meals or keep water by your desk so you can sip it throughout the day. Gradually recondition yourself to prefer healthy habits, ones that actually work for your lifestyle. Okay, so if you struggle with that, unhealthy habits, again, this is the book that you need. Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is not sponsored. This is just a really good book. I read this whole entire book, and it actually really helped me with my own art journey, where I did a 1-year art journey, and I finished 56 illustrations in that year, all by implementing and applying the concepts and the things in this book, the frameworks and systems that he laid out in this book. So it helped me to learn how to draw, it helped me with my art to improve, and it helped me to gain a lot of confidence, because in doing that and being able to lock in for that year and watch my progress over the whole year, I gained a lot of confidence. Like, I can do something, I can stick to something and be successful. All right, being busy. Another very common way that people sabotage is by distracting themselves to the point of being completely phased out of their lives. Excuse me. People who are constantly busy are running from themselves. People who are constantly busy are running from themselves. Nobody is busy unless they want to be busy. And you will know that because so many people with extremely hectic schedules would never describe themselves that way. This is because being busy is not a virtue. It only signals to others that you do not know how to manage your time or your tasks. Being busy communicates importance. It often makes you seem a little untouchable to others. It also overwhelms the body so that it can only focus on the tasks at hand. Being busy is the ultimate way to distract ourselves from what's really wrong. If your schedule is unmanageable, you're never going to be as effective or productive as you could be. If this is the case, your first job has to be to streamline and prioritize your tasks in order of importance, outsource whatever else you can, and then let go of the rest. If your issue is that you intentionally create chaos and busyness in your day when there's no need for it, you have to get comfortable with simplicity and routine. Start with writing down your top 5 tasks that need to be done each day, and then focus on doing those and only those. So start with writing down your top 5 tasks that you need to do each day, and then focus on doing those and only those. You might also need to confront the sense of protection that being busy gives you. Does it make you feel more important than others? Does it give you an excuse to say no to plans or to avoid some people? You need to find healthier and more productive ways to cope with these feelings, such as finding genuine self-confidence in what you do by creating something you're proud of, or getting better at calmly but clearly stating your boundaries and needs in relationships. I do follow a routine. Spending time with the wrong people. It's true that so much of our lives is shaped by the people we spend time with. Or what is that? No, okay. I'm gonna read that again. It's true that so much of our lives is shaped by the people we spend them with. Shaped by the people we spend them with. Our lives? I feel like it should say spend time with. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to say spend time with because it sounds better. It's true that so much of our lives is shaped by the people we spend time with, and the company you keep is another common way that people self-sabotage. Certainly, you can think of some people in your life who stress you out, make you feel insecure, and yet keep you coming back for more. These relationships exist at the lighter end of the toxicity spectrum, but they're self-defeating nonetheless. If you find yourself preoccupied with a certain friendship or relationship that is making you feel almost addicted to the feeling of being less than or jealous of, you need to gradually phase out of it. You don't need to be mean, rude, or even cut anyone out of your life. You do, however, need to understand that the people you spend the most time with will shape your future irrevocably, and so you must choose them wisely. You stick with your family and online friends. Maybe people that party, yeah, definitely. Work on building a circle of people who support and inspire you, who have similar goals and enjoy spending time with you. You should leave a get together feeling energized and inspired, not exhausted and angry. It takes time to find your group of friends. It takes time to find your group of friends, and you may not discover them that all at once. It could start with offering to take someone you admire out for coffee, or reaching out to do something with a person with whom you'd like to reconnect. Slowly but genuinely rebuild your connections, and then foster and care for them as much as you can. Worrying about irrational fears and least likely circumstances. Another very common way that people sabotage without realizing is by preoccupying themselves with fears or worst case scenarios. You're probably familiar with this, at least to some degree. You have a weird or high unlikely thought that evokes a deep sense of dread, fear, and series of doomsday scenarios in your head. You then keep coming back to it, to the point that it even controls some part of your life. Irrational fears, especially the kind that are least likely to become reality, are often what we project real fears onto. These irrational fears are safe because deep down we know they aren't going to happen. They're placeholders, a way for us to express the feeling we really have onto something we know isn't going to happen. When you find yourself in a fear cycle, constantly repeating some strange, random, or unimportant one-off circumstance or situation that has a very low probability of becoming reality, ask yourself if you have any feelings about something related that is actually valid. For example, if you get anxious about being a passenger in a car, consider if your fear is of moving forward or being out of control. Or if you're anxious about being fired from your job, the fear might really be the idea that you aren't worthy of another job or being humiliated by a higher up. Instead of wasting all of your energy trying to control some worst case scenario, consider what the message of the fear may be and what it is telling you that you need in your life. If the fear was an abstract metaphor, what would the meaning be? Is the abrupt loss of income a symbol of your desire for security? Is the fear of the future a symbol for not living fully right now? Is the anxiety about making decisions a symbol for knowing what you really want and being too afraid to choose it? At the core of the things we most fear, is a message that we are trying to send ourselves about what we really care about. If we can identify what we want to protect, we can find healthier and more secure ways to do it. If we can identify what we want to protect, we can find healthier and more secure ways to do it. All right, I think we're coming to the end here pretty soon. How to tell if you're in a self-sabotage cycle. Even if you can cognitively understand self-sabotaging behaviors, sometimes the most difficult shift is recognizing that we are engaging in them. In fact, sometimes the signs are so subtle that they're barely recognizable and often don't come to our attention until they become highly problematic or someone else points them out. Some of the most prominent symptoms of self-sabotage are as follows. You're more aware of what you don't want than what you do. You spend more of your time worrying, ruminating, and focusing on what you hope doesn't happen than you do imagining, strategizing, and planning for what you do. You spend more time trying to impress people who don't like you than you spend with people who love you for who you are. You're more focused on growing into the kind of person who evokes the envy of your supposed enemies rather than the kind of person who is beloved by their family and friends and prioritizes them no matter what. You're putting your head in the sand. You don't know basic facts about your life, like how much debt you have or what other people in your field are being paid for similar work. When you get into an argument, you run away until you forget rather than talking about what's wrong and coming up with a solution. In other words, you're in denial, and so any hope of healing is futile. You care more about convincing other people you're okay than actually being okay. You'd rather post photos that make it look like you had a great time than being concerned about whether you actually had a good time. You put more effort toward trying to convince everyone that you're doing well rather than being honest and connecting with people who could help or support you. Your main priority in life is to be liked, even if that comes at the expense of being happy. You think more about whether or not your actions will earn you the approval of people who are people, by the way, rather than whether or not they will actually make you feel fulfilled and content with who you are. You're more afraid of your feelings than anything else. If you get to the point in life at which the scariest, most detrimental thing you face is the fear of whether or not you'll be able to handle your own emotions, you are the one standing in your own way, nothing else. You're blindly chasing goals without asking yourself why you want those things. If you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing and yet you feel empty and depressed at the end of the day, the issue is probably that you're not really doing what you want to be doing. You've just adopted someone else's script for happiness. You're treating your coping mechanisms as the problem. Instead of trying to incite war on yourself to overcome your overeating, spending, drinking, sexing, whatever it is you need to improve, ask yourself what emotional need that thing is filling. Until you do, you will battle it forever. You value your doubt more than your potential. Negativity bias makes us believe that bad things are more real than good. And unless we keep that inclination in check, it can leave us believing that everything we fear to be true is more real than the good things that are actually true. You are trying to care about everything. Your willpower is a limited resource. You only have so much in a day. Rather than using it to try to become good at everything, decide what matters most to you. Focus your attention on that and let everything else slip away. You're waiting for someone else to open the door, offer approval, or hand you the life you've been waiting for. We grow up with the illusion that success is what's handed to people who are most deserving, talented, or privileged. When we arrive, however, we realize it's constructed by those who find an intersection of their interests, passions, skills, and a market gap. Sprinkle on a little bit of persistence, and the only way to fail is to give up. You don't realize how far you've come. You are not the person you were 5 years ago. You evolve, as your self-image does, so make sure that it's an accurate one. Give yourself credit for everything you've overcome that you never thought you would, and everything you've built and that you never thought you could. You've come so much farther than you think, and you're so much closer than you realize. Identifying your subconscious commitments. Part of the reason we often experience intense inner conflict or self-sabotage is because of something called a core commitments, which is essentially your primary objective or intention for your life. Your subconscious commitments are basically what you want more than anything else, and you often